Welcome to the Inferno Cast. Today we got my friend Alan Belcher here, also known as The Talent. He is a former UFC fighter, lifelong martial artist, and a business consultant now that's actually helping our industry in a major way, which I know you're slammed with that. How's everything in Mississippi today?
Hey, going good, man. Going good. Yeah, and you forgot I'm from Arkansas too.
Originally from Arkansas.
Connection. That's our biggest connection right there.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to be talking about first because Joey Perry is one of my longtime friends, man. He's been a friend, a mentor. There was a time where I was like, hey, I need you to come over here because I'm about to take over this fitness center. Tell me the answers. What do I need to do? I mean, that guy's been there for me like my entire life. So that's where you got your start. So I wanted to kind of talk about that relationship with Joey as far as when you're in Arkansas and then when you kind of transitioned out.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I didn't really start working for Joey until I guess I was about 18 or 19, something like that. So maybe even a little bit older. But I had met him before and knew of him, just from being around the area. Where I grew up was like north of Jonesboro, in like a super small town. I went to school in Imboden, and my dad lives in Pocahontas. So I grew up like outside of Pocahontas. It's like super small. So like Jonesboro and Paragould were you two different ways, but they were both probably about 45-minute drive or something from me. So when I did karate when I was a kid, and then I got introduced to Max Bishop, and that's where I got a lot of training over at Paragould with Max Bishop. And he used to go over and he would teach. Back in the day, like a karate school or whatever would have like a jiu-jitsu person or a grappling person come by and teach a class once a week or something.
Yeah, once, twice a week. Yeah, to like the four guys that show up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Because why not? They got some mats there. Yeah. That's kind of how it was then, So I was kind of following him around or whatever. And that's kind of how I met some of the other martial arts people.
Yeah, because he was he was pretty close with Gokor, wasn't he? Didn't you?
Yeah. When I was training with Max, I think I started when I was about 13. So like 13, 14, 15, I was kind of like the big kid, always, traveling with him, going over to Jonesboro, going over to Memphis, whatever, just trying to get as much martial arts training as I could. And kind of Max's thing was he was kind of spreading the grappling to the karate.
For sure. I mean, man, he was one of the leaders, especially in Arkansas Mid-South. I mean, like he was one of the guys on the front line, man. I mean, he just
for sure. Yeah, he was on a mission to find the best grappling and the best thing for combat and stuff. And like a lot of us, he came from traditional martial arts too. I think he did Japanese karate or something and some ninjutsu or whatever, and then developed and that's how I first really got to meet Joey. And then years later, and I was kind of back and forth from college, I talked to Max. I can't remember if I think I just stopped by because I hadn't really got to train much when I was like 18, 19, playing baseball over in Tennessee. So I came home like on a Christmas break or something and went over to get some training in with Max. And that's when things really changed. He was like, hey, we're working with Joey Perry now, and we're partners in this place in Paragould. He's over in, at Jonesboro. We need somebody to teach over there. And he's, I think you'd be really good, seeing that you have like a karate background.
Yeah.
And so I came up that, in that the karate world.
You understand the culture of a school, of a more traditional school. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think they saw me as a well-rounded person. I had trained grappling, but I also had trained karate when I was a kid. Somebody they could plug into whatever. So that's where I got my job for. That's where my relationship really came in with Joey Perry as my boss. He's my first boss in the martial arts. And yeah, man, it was just,
So
I ended up moving back home and working for him full time.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the experience like when you go from small town? Because man, I grew up in like the middle of nowhere doing, kicking cardboard targets at the local karate school. What was it like whenever you went to Joey's and you saw like his business infrastructure? Because that had to
Mhm.
have looked different than what you had seen,
Oh
when you
yeah.
were younger. What was that? What was
Yeah.
that like? Just kind of being introduced into that, like,
To me, yeah. To me at the time, um, you I couldn't see any further than that. I thought that was the biggest thing. That was
yeah,
and it was, and not to downplay it at all. He had a really good thing going, and he's done a lot of different things over the years, and he's an entrepreneur, so he's done a lot of different stuff.
yeah,
But that location at the time, looking back at it, it wasn't like crazy, you know, huge or anything. But to me at the time, it was
exactly.
just, yeah, 2 floors, very clean.
Yeah,
It smelled good, which was totally different than what I was
yeah,
used
it's
to.
so strange. There's not gear laying around all over the floor and like,
Yeah,
duct tape on everything. I mean,
a
yeah,
light bulb went off. A light bulb went off at that time of like, wow, this is like, I think I was more attracted to it as a um, consumer.
yeah,
Really, at the time, it was kind of like a mix of like, I'm an adult, I need to do something. But really, at that time, it was still more of the consumer than hey, I want to make money doing this too, and I could do a business. I didn't see it like, I think I was still young enough where I kind of saw it like a consumer. I was like, yeah,
this is
this is a
cool.
great place to do martial arts because it's organized and structured and
Yeah,
and all that. So that totally changed my whole world. Obviously, everything that I do now is very similar to what it's totally changed my life and shaped my life. You take the UFC thing out, basically, if you look back, you take my career of fighting in UFC, and you just look at what I've done professionally. It started when I was 18, 19 years old, go in, work for Joey Perry,
yeah,
and teach classes after school, drive the van, do sign up new students, go out and pick up leads from the lead boxes, go to the mall, set it up, like that whole thing. And then you
yeah,
fast forward now, trying to think how many years later, 16, 17 years later,
yeah.
and I'm basically doing the same thing.
Right.
That's
Oh,
my
absolutely.
that's my life. We're still signing up martial arts students. We're
Yeah.
still,
And that's,
setting up
it's
booths
like
at
that
home.
professional standard, I mean, and I got a similar story with him where, he helped me establish a professional standard in the martial arts industry. Now let's fast forward to MMA fighting. Danny Dring running the amateur MMA shows back in
Yeah.
the day. You were a kid, you show up, you fight on the show. What was it like with your first MMA fight? How different was it then, as an experience?
Oh man. Yeah, it was a totally different experience. I
Do
mean,
you
that's the
remember the 90-second rule where you could, like, after 90 seconds on the
yeah.
ground, they would call it and just stand it up regardless? I mean, that
Yeah,
was,
yeah. Yeah, they did a couple of different rules sets back then, but it was always some type of pancration type of
yeah,
can't go completely all the way type of thing.
right.
So,
Yeah, yeah, trying
which
to
was
keep it.
interesting, how it developed. Like you would think that back in the day you could do more stuff, but
Yeah,
as time went on, now it's more full fledged. Like most states have adopted elbows and knees to the head, and some states even allow amateurs to do that.
yeah, yeah.
It's
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 gotten
crazy. So
progressive. Yeah,
back then, and that was what was, I remember still seeing UFC for the first time when I was like 12 or something, and being like, I can't believe this is allowed. It's like some underground. It was
yeah,
like a weird thing. Now it's just part of our culture. It's just another sport. It's like a big sport,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, no, it
Um,
definitely is. So, but
but
now we had kind of talked earlier about shady MMA shows. So tell us a
yeah.
story of one of the shadiest MMA shows you ever got to be involved with.
Oh man, shady.
Because there's a lot of them. Like, because I've been in a rodeo arena, we've had midgets in between rounds that happened all the time. We had these
Yeah.
strippers one time down in Louisiana that showed up in the ring before the main event. Like, So there's been some wild, crazy ones that
Yeah.
have been, I'm sure you've been somewhere where you've seen something that was just so strange or inherently dangerous that was like, oh, this was such a bad idea.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, pretty much all that same stuff. Fighting in a 3-rope wrestling ring.
Yeah.
The entire ring breaking, and
Oh, no way.
that was Jeff Mullen's show. The entire ring just collapsed. During a fight.
Did the show go on? That's the bigger question.
Yeah, I think they jacked it up. Somebody got a jack and jacked it up. The show just kept going on. What is there? I mean, I saw all kinds of things. I saw, one in a slot, one just off the top of my head in Louisiana. I saw a guy lose 2 times in one fight. I don't know if you've ever saw that before.
No.
But
How did he lose twice? Did they just do a redo?
I can't remember exactly what was. I think it was a choke or something and a tap and everything. Yeah, and they just did a redo, just another fight.
Let's just see what happens.
Yeah,
man.
I think the guy was actually he was kind of like a promoter of the fight.
Yeah.
The guy that lost.
Okay.
And so it's like some politics type of thing. Like, no, let's just do it again.
Yeah.
So,
we'll just start over. It's cool.
He lost again.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
So
that is funny. It's definitely evolved, man, because so I remember one of the first shows in Arkansas was in a Mexican restaurant. Like they brought in a ring, and then that's where the fights were. and one of our guys, Sparks, was the referee. He had no idea what he was doing, and it's just evolved so much. And that kind of takes me to the next point, was like, for you as a martial artist coming out of the small town, and especially, making it to the level you did, where was your transition in life when you knew, like you just knew inside of you that you were meant for something bigger and more? Like there had to have been a moment or something where it's like, you know what, man, my life doesn't need to look like what I came from.
Yeah. That really started happening for me. I'm not sure if it was the martial arts or if it was my baseball and basketball coaches at my little school. But it was around about the same time. Okay. Mm-hmm. So actually, I think it was kind of pre when I really got into it. So my 2 martial arts ages that I really remember is like my first time in the karate school when I was 8 years old. Mm-hmm. Kind of, training for a while, probably on and off. The place went out of business, then another one opened, whatever, that type of thing. Small town stuff. And then again, training with Max Bishop when I was about 13 or 14 there. So I guess when you're in the 7th grade, how old are you? You're probably about 12 years
13.
old.
Yeah, 12, 13.
Yeah, about 12, 13 years old. Okay, so 7th grade, I went out for the basketball team, and I was still chubby, and like I was not a basketball player, but you would think you would at least get on the team in a small town like Imboden.
Yeah.
But I got cut from the team. There was a lot of kids, felt like a lot of kids, maybe not, maybe only 2 of us got cut. But
yeah, but still, there was enough.
Either way, I got cut, and the coach, he saw that I was trying and hustling, and he was kind of like, you got a lot of hustle, you just got some work to do, whatever. It's still kind of a connection. And something very ironic happened. My family, we moved from where we lived out by in between Ravenden and Ravenden Springs, like in a town that wasn't even really a town, just a rural area over closer to my school. We on this farm, and our next door neighbor was the coach. So we're kind of out there in the country, and he's out on his 4-wheeler, and I'm out on the 4-wheeler, and there's the coach. So now, in a small town, you live next door to someone like that, you create a relationship with them.
Yeah.
So he was like, here's this kid that I cut off the team, and he was a little hustler, and now I'm getting to know him or whatever. So coach, I was over at his house or whatever, maybe asked me to come over, do some work for him or whatever, and which was pretty common, come help him with projects and stuff. And he gave me this John Wooden basketball drills video VHS.
That's the master right there.
And this is, the reason why this is important for martial arts is because it's kind of the same thing. It's what, it's that, quest to get better and be better, and studying videotape or DVD or whatever. It's that thing that, the guys that are really good and that are our age and have been in this for a while, we've all, looked at magazine techniques, frame by frame, and videos long before YouTube and all that. So that's where it kind of started for me with this VHS, with this John Wooden thing. So he said, go do that, do those drills. And I had a dirt court, and I practiced basketball all summer long. Coach taught me, like, you got that dirt floor. He was like, when I was a kid, when it was muddy outside, I would try to keep the mud off the palm of my hand just by touching the basketball with my fingertips. You dribble and you shoot with your fingertips. That's how you master basketball. So I worked at every single day. He gave me a little thing that you put on your wrist, keep your wrist straight and all that. So I got better. Next year, I made the team, and I was a good player from then on out.
Yeah.
Small town, it wasn't hard to be like a starter and a star basketball player. But that coach, and then also my baseball coach, they both inspired me. Oh, sorry, got cut off for a second.
Okay, man.
But yeah, they both really inspired me to see beyond our little town and possibilities of going to college and things like that. And both of these guys have been like college basketball players, and they're back at this small school. So they just have a certain vibe.
Yeah.
And they can tell the kids are kind of stuck in their little town with their little mindsets. And so they're like, they kind of have this attitude like we do with the kids that we see like that. Like, man, you could freaking be a college player. Like you're putting this stuff up on a pedestal, basically, but you got to start thinking bigger. That was kind of the vibe that I got. So that really changed my life. At the same time, I'm, training with Max Bishop and everything. So that was when it was really, I caught that bug to just like get out of this small town, and there's no reason why I can't be what anyone else in the world can be, and right. It wasn't like a defining time except for, that thing with being introduced to those three really men in my life that mentored me, Max Bishop and Coach Richie and Coach Greg Foreman. Those three guys inspiring me to keep working and getting better,
So when you got your first call to the UFC, did you feel like, okay, I've made it, this is it? Or was it just another day at the office of like, this was the inevitable?
Well, yeah, I mean, it really, at that time, you feel like, yeah, I made it. This is it. That was the next step in the road. It was pretty incredible, man, because I had been thinking about it for years and years and years and working on it. And there was no real path. There was an Ultimate Fighter actually at the time. This was,
I think it had just gotten started though. I think like
2006 was like, it was like season 3, season 4. I had tried out for Ultimate Fighter. Actually, the season that I didn't make, you probably remember Danny Abadi.
Yeah.
Danny Abadi, another karate dude, me and him lived together in Atlanta, and we went up, tried out for this Ultimate Fighter. He got on the Ultimate Fighter. I got cut same season 3, I think. It was Ed Herman, Kaleb Starnes, Kendall Grove, those guys. So Ed Herman and Kendall Grove fight in the finale, and Danny fought Kaleb Starnes in the finale, and I cornered him. So I ended up fighting all 3 of those guys in my career, and I got missed up, which was pretty ironic. But yeah, man, I remember exactly where I was. I was in the gym where I used to teach kids out of. I used to teach them in this little like yoga room or whatever, and it was like a weightlifting gym, and everybody knew there that I was training and trying to get there, and I got that message or call or whatever from Rich Clemente, because he was really helping me. He was mentoring me and helping me at that time. So he was pulling strings with everybody he knows, like, hey, check out this kid.
Rich, he's been around forever too, man. Rich is for sure. Another pioneer.
So Rich, and I fought on a card out in San Diego with Roger Huerta and John McCarthy, the UFC referee, was very famous at that time in UFC.
Yeah.
He refereed my fight, and he was like, you got I won that night, a decision against one of Dan Henderson's kind of like college wrestling kind of students or whatever that was supposed to be good. So he's like, man, you need to be in UFC because that dude is like UFC quality.
Yeah, he was the gatekeeper.
Yes, exactly. So then John McCarthy was kind of pulling for me, and Rich was talking to people. So yeah, man, it just all happened. I got that short notice fight.
Yep. I remember.
That's how it happens. You got to be
10 days,
ready.
right?
Yeah, you got to be ready. A few days notice to go against Yushin Okami, and I fought him to a decision my first fight and got a contract. So yeah, man, very life-changing.
Whenever you were in the UFC and you're prepping for these fights, I'm sure, the first one, maybe the first couple, the nerves, like, this is important, I have to do well. When did that transition? Because, man, you started carrying yourself with a confidence, like, just your demeanor changed as your career went on to where, like, you could see that it wasn't like, oh, I have to win this fight. It was, this is an opportunity that I'm going to take full advantage of. Like, I belong here, and this guy just doesn't know what he's signing up for, yet. I mean, it just, your confidence transitioned, and I was just wondering if you were able to articulate that of kind of what was happening.
Well, the way that I gauged that in my career was the way that I felt kind of warming up for the fight, standing in the back for you to walk out. And then when I would walk out and enter the cage, circle around, kind of do the same thing each time. So that was one thing that was kind of the same, right? You warm up for 30, 45 minutes. Okay, Belcher, you're next. You come down here, you wait, and then you walk out and you do your same routine. So it's the same every single time. And I had 16, 17 fights in the UFC.
Yep.
So each time repeating that same thing, I could feel where I was mentally and my confidence and my butterflies and stuff like that. So that's how I would gauge every time of, kind of how I was and how I felt like I was going to do in the fight. And I could feel my confidence each time. The way I explain it to people is each time the crowd felt smaller. It felt like I was more of a bigger fish, and more of a superstar, more of a bigger fish in a small town crowd. When my first town, I was kind of like, hey, I'm not really supposed to be here.
Yeah.
And it's like a huge, what the heck's going on? And it just kind of gets smaller and smaller until, you just get more and more confident, more comfortable doing it. So experience, there's no beating that, experience.
Yeah. So if you were going to transition that experience, because this is what you did, is you took that world platform that you were on as an athlete and you flipped it over to the business world and didn't miss a beat, man, because I've been around for a while and I've seen a lot of people attempt to do what you have done and were successful, but the speed in which you transitioned from fighter to business person and the success that came with that, like, it was so smooth and seamless. How did you do this? What was some of the secrets behind that,
I think it has to have a lot to do with my experience that I had in fighting, and realizing that whatever industry that you get into or career that you go to, it's kind of the same, right? You're gonna feel like you don't belong at first. Yeah. And I felt like I kind of took that confidence, although it's totally different, the confidence and experience of being on top. I came in and I was just kind of like, hey, I'm the best at this. Although when I started, I wasn't the best. I had to work into that, So I think just the confidence from it, and also, doing something that you really like to do and believe in is very important. So as early as my first UFC fight, before the UFC, I could sit and talk business with people. Like, I love the idea of, entrepreneurship and capitalism, and just, taking an idea of a product and like, man, that would be, that idea would be a great invention. And, that would be make a ton of money, and just having those conversations. How would you market it? How would you sell it? Yeah, man,
Get
it's
some brain rolling.
fun.
Well, and that's one thing. So like, I've got to be around, you and a lot of the guys you do business with. And I mean, I worked with you last year on some social media marketing. And if there's one thing that I have noticed from the outside is that one of your most aggressive things that you do is you try to build up your team and the people around you, almost more aggressively than you try to build yourself up or, invest in yourself. It's like, I've just seen that as such a priority, like with Amy and Paul and your team, like you're pushing them so hard to be the best and to see where they could, like they should be the best in the world. And I just wanted you to kind of finish with your thought on investing in others, because like that is just who you are, because you've always been a helper and you always pour into others. So I was going to see if maybe you could give us a little perspective on why that value is so important to you.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, the easiest way to explain that is like, I never wanted to be a taker. Nobody likes a taker. Nobody likes to show off. You want the more that you can give, whether you're doing it selfishly or kind-heartedly. If you give more, it's going to come back to you,
Mm-hmm.
And I always knew that it wasn't without other people. That's one thing you have to humble yourself on and realize that, at the end of the day, you're the one in control of your life, but it takes other people. It takes relationships. Take everybody else away. It's like, what do we got? So teamwork is very important, and leadership is about building other people up, building a strong team around you, and not making it about yourself.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think that you have embodied that with everything you've ever done, man. Like you're always the first to give props and credit to others, and your business is growing. You're helping our industry. I mean, you're saving a lot of school owners right now, because I know that everybody's freaking out with circumstances, but you've been giving them solutions, and it's appreciated. And man, I appreciate you taking time today. I hope you go out and
I got one final a story popped in my head, so I think this would be a good way to end this.
Okay.
It's a good story I've told a few times, and I think everybody get a kick out of it, and it should be good. So the first time that I saw MMA live was I'm 13 years old. My dad takes me to Paragould to the Timeout Sports Club. Ironically, Max Bishop is the promoter, which I didn't really know him that good at the time. And we go in there, Timeout Sports Club. It's a bar connected to a Ramada Inn hotel. Very strange, right?
Yeah.
It's a very small room, probably about like the Mexican restaurant, right?
Yeah.
So we go in, there's a big burly bouncer, with the thing. He's like, "These kids can't come in here," and me and my buddies and a couple little buddies my age, and my dad's like, "You sure?" And he's like, try to slip him some, 20 or something like that, and didn't work. He's like, "No, I just can't do it, man." So he's like, "Okay, cool." So we go around the corner, and my dad's like, "We're getting in there. Don't worry. We're not done. Don't worry. I know you guys are disappointed, don't we? We're getting in there." So we go around the other side. There's another hallway on the other side of the building. You know how you got two entrances, right? You got both of them blocked off. But the bouncer's at one. The other side's just locked.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we go around to the other side. And it's locked, and it's a huge wooden door. And my dad, he gets his fingers in there, and he pries it open where you got a little crack like that. So me and my buddies all like stack our three heads up, and we're looking in there. So I look through the crack. First time I saw UFC on the tapes, with the guy with the karate pants, the sumo guy, the jiu-jitsu gi guy, the wrestler, Ken Shamrock, all that. So that's what I've got in my head. And I look through, there's that 3-rope wrestling ring that makes a ton of noise when it hits.
Yeah.
There's a guy in the full mount on top of another guy, okay, raining down punches. He's wearing blue jean cutoff shorts. That was my first vision of that, right? So we're watching. We're just total like in shock. I'm like, man, this is what I got to do. This is amazing, you know. And so we're there, and eventually, I think what kind of happens is someone's like, hey, what are you guys doing or whatever, and then my dad starts talking to that guy. He's like, we'll just come in here, and like, so we actually get inside and watch the rest of the show. Okay, you know David Ferguson from Memphis, right?
Oh, yeah.
So he's got his whole crew there, and David Ferguson fought that night. Okay, and a lot of people nowadays like, David Ferguson fought, because a lot of people know. I'm like, oh yeah, when I was coming up, he was badass, dude.
He fought over in our town. He fought some big name. I can't even remember who it was, but it was somebody. Dan Severn. He jumped in there with Dan Severn one time, and I was like, what? Yeah, he's an animal,
man. Yeah, people don't realize, like, how do you think this guy got started? Just because it wasn't on TV and stuff back then. Trust me, this dude is a bad dude. Yeah. So Ferguson fought. I'll never forget. He used to have, you know, that good hair that he's got now. He's in his 40s, and he's got that great hair. Imagine Ferguson when he's in his like mid to late 20s. Hair like boom, shaking, like straight hair, like he looks like Brad Pitt. Yeah. Okay, I'm a kid, and that's what I'm thinking. Like, man, this dude looks like a freaking movie star. Looks like Brad Pitt with that hair. Yeah. That's awesome. We call it Ole Miss hair in Mississippi.
Oh man,
he's got that Ole Miss hair, that long hair, and he's got on some green Umbros. Okay.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
the green Umbros. So he had like some special high tech MMA shorts. All right.
Yeah.
He fights. He gets a takedown, full mount, the fastest punches from mount ever. I was like, man, that's how I'm going to win every fight from now on. You take him down, you mount him, and you just and the ref stops it. Like that's badass. That was important. But then after his fight, he gives a speech. I used to have a video of this too, and so only a few people have saw this. You know, he gives a speech, and it was freaking epic because he was on point. He was a great speaker back then, just like he is now. Great communicator, and he gives a speech, and it kind of goes like MMA, or it wasn't called MMA at the time, but like this sport, you know, is the sport of the future.
Yeah.
And in that room of people, like no one could really see that except for him and a couple other people there.
Yeah.
You know. And that was just a monumental moment for me to hear him say, this is going to be the sport of the future, right up there with baseball and basketball and football. This is going to be the sport of the future. And it was just an epic moment. And it turns out that he's right. It's a huge sport now, and it's amazing, you know, just that whole thing, you know. So that's one of my best stories right there, is that first time and all the crazy shadiness of the fight, and Ferguson, who is now, you know, still in my life, and you know, still a great person for us to look up to and stuff. And it was just really cool, man. So I'll just leave you with that. The sport of the future is now. We're in the future. Of course, we're in the apocalypse now.
Now it's a whole different thing, but yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. Appreciated catching up with you. You know, definitely be seeing you around when things get back to normal, but thanks for taking the time, and we'll be catching up with you soon.
Absolutely. Talk to you later, Kaleb.